Good afternoon. Welcome to everyone that has come along today. We greatly appreciate your time and support. Please remain standing for the Syrian national anthem. Thank you. We will now have a 1-minute silence for those that have lost their life in the Syrian army. and all the civilians that have also lost their life. Our thoughts are also with the Australian servicemen that have lost their life defending their country. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your support today. We are here to stand with the Syrian people at this time of crisis. We are here to say no to war, violence, no to the religious division, and yes to peace and unity. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have a number of speeches. First up, would like to welcome Ali Mohammed.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Australian Syrian community, I would like to welcome and thank fellow Australians for joining us today in the Hands Off Syria 2012 peace rally. I would like to start with an overview of Syria as a country. Syria is also known as the Syrian Arab Republic. Syria is in the Middle East that borders 5 other countries. Syria is known as a secular state and is home for around 15 different religions and sects. 10 interesting facts about what the Syrian government does for their people. Free healthcare for all, free education from primary school through to university, free medication for the terminally ill. Petrol before the conflict was around about 20 cents a litre, and that's heavily subsidised by the government. Banks are government owned, interest rates are extremely low, and they don't meet once a month on every Tuesday to change their rates. In 2010, Syria was listed as the top 4 safest country in the world. In 2010, Syria boasted 99% literacy rates. Now we'll actually touch what's happening in Syria at the moment. In the last 18 months, Syria has been under attack both internally and externally. Internally from extremists, jihadists and terrorists, externally from countries that are supplying and paying these terrorists. There are terrorists entering Syria from its many borders. Some are coming from Libya, some are coming from Lebanon, Turkey, Afghanistan, Chechnya, Somalia and Saudi Arabia. Most of these terrorists are financially backed on weekly payrolls coming from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Last week, the US government announced a further $45 million to the so-called rebels and freedom fighters. The US government tally for terrorist funding in Syria this year has reached $132 million. This is remembering that the US government is the same government that caused the 2008 financial global crisis. This government lends 43 cents in every dollar it spends. Now we'd like to talk about the media war against Syria. As we all know, the media, in conjunction with various governments, sold the world the Iraq war. This war was based on Iraq possessing weapons of mass destruction, not based on the fact that Iraq had the world's second largest oil reserves. What the media failed to tell the world is how purification and electrical power plants were bombed, denying people electricity and fresh water. The act of bombing vital human infrastructure and heavy sanctions resulted in illness, starvation and deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians. In Syria today, the media is telling us it's a civil war. My question to the media is, how is this a civil war when paid mercenaries are entering Syria from various borders in various countries? The media sells us that and tells us that the Syrian rebels are under-equipped and possess nothing more than olive branches. Some of these olive branches are anti-aircraft guns mounted on the back of Toyota Hiluxes and things like that entering Turkey. These olive branches have a range of about 2.5 kilometres and an effective range of 2 kilometres. They are also being supplied with anti-tank missiles coming from Germany and France. Each missile is worth about $100,000, and yet these guys are ill-equipped. Therefore, I would like people to lobby mainstream media and governments to tell the truth and call on our government and other governments to stop supporting and funding these terrorists. In my final address, I'd like to ask that we ask everyone this question. In wars, who pays, who dies, and who benefits? Thank you.
We will now have Linda Youssef. Good luck.
Thank you all for coming today. We are here today to encourage our government to push for a peaceful resolution in Syria. I am an Australian born and bred. I have visited Syria on a regular basis for the past 20 years, and I'm very saddened by what's happening there now. Most of the news coming out of Syria is through Al Jazeera network, which is owned by the Qatari king. Qatar is one of the main financial backers of the terrorists causing havoc in Syria. What sort of news do you think they are showing us? Definitely not the truth. Has anybody seen or heard of any interviews or footage of any Syrians that are against these terrorists? The answer is no. They don't want you to see that side of the story. If the majority of the Syrian population was against the government, it would not have survived till now. How can anyone believe that a government would kill its own people? It is not a crime for a government to defend itself against foreign terrorists which want to destroy the country. They show us on TV displaced families on both sides of the Turkish border. Is that so unusual when there is a war being waged? They don't talk about the thousands of displaced families who have gone to cities that are relatively peaceful, like the city my family are currently living in. Their city's population has tripled during this conflict, but people are still living together peacefully. What does that tell you?